transition from being at East Central, right? I got my grad assistant degree, or I got my master's degree in education, and emphasis in sports administration. They didn't have a full-time paid assistant, okay? So once I graduated, there was no job available. I'm 23 years old. My goal is to be a Division I coach. I want to be the best baseball coach I can possibly be, okay? So what do I do from here? Learn, grow, network. So this was my journey. I sent out an email to every junior college program in Phoenix, Arizona, because I thought Phoenix, Arizona is the baseball hub. All right, there's half the spring training complex is there. That's the best place that I can meet the most amount of baseball people. And that's the best place for me to learn and grow. All right, so I got 3 responses back. After emailing those schools, I said, hey, I'm interested in coming out. I'm going to drive 17 hours straight from Oklahoma. I'm going to interview, and then I'm going to drive 17 hours straight back. If you have an opening, I'd love to interview for it, because I thought that was my path to learn, grow, and network. I got 3 responses back. One of those was Todd Easton, the head coach at South Mountain Community College. It's where I wanted to be. That's where I identified, so I tried to manifest that. All right. But I didn't know if he had an opening. All right? So I went down there, drove 17 hours straight, tons of seeds and Red Bull, no sleep, figuring out no money, okay? Go down there, I interview with Todd. At that time, their AC wasn't working. It's Phoenix, Arizona in June, right? It's 120 degrees. We're sitting in this room talking hitting. We have a lot of the same philosophies. I pack up all my stuff. I drive 17 hours home. He calls me and says, I got a job opening for you, all right? You have an infield spot and a hitting spot open. It pays no money, okay? But if you want it, it's yours. So I'm like, sweet. I knew that's where I needed to be to learn, grow, and network and get to be the best coach I could possibly be. I said, I'll figure out how to make money. He calls me back 3 weeks later. He says, hey, I got a field maintenance job open for you, okay? It just opened up. It's 4:30 a.m. These are the hours. 4:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. It pays a whopping $9 an hour with no benefits. I said, sweet, that sounds legit, I'll take it, okay? All right, so I moved there and I worked 16-hour days, but I loved what I do, all right? And I learned that from my grandpa back in the day, who was a businessman, who woke up every single day, all right, and was disciplined and loved what he did in the business world, that he worked until the day he died, all right? He never thought about retirement. In our society, we talk about retirement a lot. Some people get into jobs because the retirement plan's legit, right? I struggle with going to work every day thinking about I'm counting down the days of retiring. That means you hate doing the job you're doing. And you're going to do that job for 1/3 of your life. We're going to sleep 1/3 of our life, and then we're going to probably work 1/3 of our life. So 1/3 of their life, you're just waking up and going to a job that you hate. I don't give a shit what you get paid. That ain't worth it. So that's why I love going to the baseball field every day. I don't work a day in my life, but I learned that from my grandpa as he woke up every single day, was disciplined, loved what he did by serving others and creating this environment. But you have to pave your way to get there, right? And it's not pretty to start with, but it is worth it if you have a big vision goal. So figure out how to pave those paths, and it's not the easy, I'm just going to walk into a $65,000 job as the recruiting coordinator. That dude actually makes $250,000. Yeah. So
I want to tack onto that. So when the baseball department at the Savannah Bananas, it's being developed as we speak. The Bananas started in 2016, correct? The touring team that we have now has been going on for 3 seasons. Not 3 years, it's basically 3 seasons. And it's a wildly different endeavor. And so Tyler and I and another phenomenal individual, Barry Aldridge, we are creating what the baseball department looks like. So when I sat down with Jared Orton, the president of Savannah Bananas, who was a day one guy, when I sat down with him last year and I expressed my interest, I literally walked up to him and said, I want to work here full time. This is where I want to be. And he said, okay, if you know Jared Orton, he's a man of very few words. And he said, okay, what's up, time to talk. And so we had this interview, we had a meeting, and we sat down in the bleachers at Grayson Stadium, and I said, I came prepared. I had a plan, a vision for the baseball department. It was easy to have a plan because there was zero plan. There was nothing happening with the Bananas from a structural baseball department. It was a couple coaches, some baseballs, and some uniforms. And so I came prepared, and I said, here's what it should look like. And he said, okay, great. And he looked at it, we had some talks, and he was kind of testing me out to make sure we were in alignment from, culture standpoint, this and the other. Great, left the meeting. 2 days later, I saw Jesse Cole. Jesse Cole is the man in the yellow suit, the guy that created the Savannah Bananas. He is truly a miraculous individual. He's one of the smartest individuals, the hardest workers I've ever been around. And I've been around some really hard workers. And he passed me in the clubhouse, and I said, hey Jared, or hey Jesse, I had a great conversation with Jared. And he was like, yeah, I heard. And I said, yeah, I provided a roadmap and a plan of where I think my role might fit here. And he stopped. And this was right before a game, actually, and so it's kind of chaotic, as you can imagine, in Banana Land right before games. And he stopped, and he's like, Viro, thanks for doing that. What I need you to do is I need you to make a list of what gives you energy, what really, really drives you and gives you energy. Because if you are then doing that role, you are going to be the best for the organization, the best for the players, the best for the whole experience. And that changed my whole perspective on jobs and duties. And so I was like, thanks, Jesse. And I sat down and I literally made a list. This is what gives me energy. And so my list of what gave me energy as it applies to the Bananas was, I love coaching. I love creating relationships with players, helping them, and being there for them. So I love that. So if I'm going to be a part of the Bananas, I always need to be involved in coaching at some level, all right, whatever it may be. Second, I like helping. I like troubleshooting. I learned that being very resourceful growing up in Omaha, Nebraska. We didn't have a lot of money, so my grandma taught us how to be very, very resourceful. She is the most resourceful person. She could have been a Navy SEAL. She really could have. I mean, she would have been badass. But I learned how to be resourceful, and so that led me to troubleshoot. Troubleshoot, not, hey, where are we going to find some new shoelaces? Troubleshooting big, kind of heavy issues, operational issues, whatever it may be. And so I want to be able to be involved in that troubleshooting process. And then three, most importantly, I want to have some creative freedom to help people. I don't want to be put in a little box. I want to be given, hey, this is a blank slate. And so once he said, whatever gives you energy, and that's a phrase we use around Savannah Bananas a lot. Does it give you energy? Yes, great, go do that. Does it give you energy? No, it sucks energy from you. It's that, what Tyler was talking about, 1/3 of your life working, 1/3 of your life sleeping. And usually those folks who don't really have much energy in their job, the other third, they're complaining about their job or their boss. All right, it's a vicious, vicious circle. That's where I was from a law standpoint. Raise your hand if you think that lawyers get paid more than youth baseball coaches. Yes, all of your hands should be shooting up there. I can tell you that lawyers get paid 1 million times better than youth baseball coaches. But you know what? I hated every second of practicing law because it didn't jive with me, except for one thing. What do you think that was? The paycheck. You're exactly right. It's the only thing I liked. But you know what? I never felt fulfilled. I never felt more poor making so much money because I had nothing that fed me. I had no drive. Okay? Baseball, making, I think Nate Fish offered me $12 an hour to go work at the prestigious Upper East Side Baseball Academy. And I loved it. I loved it, I loved it, I loved it. And now I'm at the Bananas. I can tell you, this is not an infomercial for the Bananas. The Bananas are doing just fine, okay? I literally love every single thing that I do at the Bananas. Why? Because Tyler, Jesse, Jared, they all allow me to do things that give me energy. And ironically, it lines up nicely. Things that I love doing, there's people that don't want to do it. All right, but it gives me energy and they let me do it. And so we have a lot of long days, but you know what? It's not stressful. It's a lot of work, and we love it. And if you can find whatever that is, and the sooner you find it, the better, for your just general happiness and well-being from a work-life standpoint. But if you find those jobs, if you find that profession, if you find that energy or that industry, man, you are onto it. And you know what? You're going to pour every bit of energy into that job, and nobody's going to be able to take it away from you because you love it so much. And so it took me 40 years to get there. Tyler got there a lot sooner. He's providing some phenomenal building blocks. I can tell you that if you kind of sit down and give some deep thought about, hey, you know what gives me energy? What gives me energy? What do I see myself doing? What can I do for no money? All right? Cool, now let's go that way. You might have to do that and work towards that for little or no money. But I can tell you that the amount of money that I make at the Savannah Bananas, it doesn't even matter because the energy and joy that I get every single day. Every single day. I wake up every day and I'm so fired up to go in there, and I have no idea what's going to happen. But again, that aligns what gives me energy, that troubleshooter, that kind of problem solving. That make sense? Well, what do you got?
Question. So you mentioned about building a relationship with the players. Your situation is so unique, but it still comes down to relationships. So what do you all do to try and build relationships with your banana players?
You want to go first?
Yeah, so when we were a summer collegiate team, the first thing that we did, we had 40 players coming from all different colleges around the country. They would come in somewhere around that May 28th date, and we had 4 assistant coaches at that time and me, and the first week I would always tell them, it doesn't matter about hitting, pitching, it doesn't matter any of those beliefs. When they first get here the first week, we want to make sure we know everything about those people, right? Because it's not about what you know, okay? It doesn't matter about what you know. And usually we go into trying to teach something and we want to splurge and say, hey, I'm the smartest person in the world. I know everything about hitting, pitching, strength and conditioning, whatever it is, right? And the thing about it is none of you guys know anything about me, and I don't know anything about you, so you don't really have that trust and vulnerability yet. So the first week I'd always tell coaches, you're going to get to know everything about every one of these players. Who's their girlfriend? Who is their family? Where are they from? What music do they like? What do they like to eat? What gives them energy? All right? Learn and ask questions. Don't really give them any information. Just be like, hey man, you know, what have you been doing with your swing or your pitching mechanics? So you're completely learning and just creating a relationship, and you're building trust. You need trust at the foundation of everything. And another way to do that is to be vulnerable and tell stories about you messing up and you not being the best and you going through adversities. And you start building up this trust. Then, right, that gives you the opportunity to, hey, let's talk about your swing. Let's talk about hitting. Let's talk about all of these things. And then when you get into the ruts of adversity through the summer season and things are going tough and you're playing 6-10 games in a row, late nights, maybe you lose a couple games in a row, that builds that trust to be like, hey, we're going to be able to get through this. We've been through the trenches. I know you, you know me type of deal. Let's figure out how to get through this thing. But that starts with just getting to know people, right? You're not just going to walk in and go, all right, I saw you take one swing, let's fix this swing, and I'm grabbing you and I'm saying, all right, let's do this and let's do that. And you're like, dude, get off of me. Like, you don't know anything about me. So that's what relationships is creating that trust and being vulnerable with people right off the bat. And then from there, you can go into depth with whatever you're coaching. That would probably be my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah, same page. Again, one thing that you're gonna catch on, I don't have these beautiful structures laid out. I kind of, I approach coaching very, very similar with the individual players, but it's first an understanding that everybody is a unique organism. Every single person in here comes from a different walk of life, has different experiences that have shaped them up to this point. And so understanding that you all get communicated differently. And so we as coaches, we have to adjust our communication to that individual. Some people want to, analytics, you guys have all heard that term in sports. There's some baseball players, the amateur level all the way up to major league levels, that don't want to hear anything technical, science, analytical wise, because it just doesn't resonate with them. So as a coach, if you believe that analytics can help this player grow, you better figure out a way to communicate with that player without getting way too deep into something they don't want to hear about, analytics. Conversely, if this player needs to know everything about the mechanics, everything about the metrics in order to help them get to where they need to go, then you have to adjust your communication to that player. But it all starts with sitting down and talking to them and listening to them and learning them. Relationships to me, are, from a coaching standpoint and a player standpoint, are the most important aspect of the job. And again, you got to learn who wants to even have a relationship, who wants to have a humorous relationship. There's players on the Bananas, as you can imagine, that are jokers, and I like humor and I like joking around. And so me figuring out when to deploy whatever my humor or my communication is to that person in that moment only comes with time and experience. But you have to sit down and you have to learn your players. There's players that I don't joke with at all, because the way they approach their business is their business, and I adjust my communication in the way that I help them accordingly. And they know that, and quite frankly, that's the best for that player. Like Tyler said, I'm guilty of when I got in that batting cage up in the, again, prestigious Upper East Side Baseball Academy. The first time I got in there, I wanted to show everybody everything I knew about hitting. Like, up to like, hey, I can hit a baseball, right? Like, what was it? How was that helping that 6-year-old kid? It was feeding my ego, right? I had inadequacies. I had insecurities as a coach, and so I leaned on what was comfortable for me. I screwed up more kids in that batting cage than I probably helped early on, because I didn't understand that, just like I'm communicating to you, that, hey, everybody's individual. They get communicated differently. These kids may have just woke up at 6 a.m. and went to school all day long at 4 o'clock, and they don't want to listen, they want to play. So understanding and adapting to those individual organisms is critical. Is critical. I can tell half the class, hey, I need you to put your elbow up, and or I can tell the whole class, put your elbow up, get your elbow up, and like some of you guys will be up here, some of you will be here, some of you will be in the middle. And so understanding, hey, what type of communication works for each individual is all about understanding who that person is and how they operate.
A couple things with that. One of probably the best quotes that I've gotten told every year that I go to the National Baseball Convention, and I probably hear it 30 times while I'm there, is people don't care what you know until they know how much you care. You guys heard that before? People don't care what you know until they know how much you care. So that's about creating a relationship, right? And so there's a couple books, all right, if any of you guys are into reading, okay? We read a ton. Jesse Cole reads a ton. There's so much good in books that can educate you because of people that have done it before. So there's one book by a guy named Brett Bartholomew. Heard of Brett Bartholomew at all? Really good strength and conditioning coach. He wrote a book called Coaching Conscious. Right? When I was teaching in Phoenix, Arizona, I ran our exercise science department there. And I gave 2 books to my personal training students every year, Coaching Conscious and The Language of Coaching by Nick Winkler. Those are 2 Bibles for me when it comes to personal training and strength and conditioning, because it's not about X's and O's, and usually when you go into a classroom, everybody wants to talk about X's and O's. All right? The programming of strength and conditioning, that's the easy part. It's the ability to meet the person where they're at. Like Byro says, is everybody's a different organism. You got to learn the organism and what they're going through from day to day to be a good strength and conditioning coach. All right? And so those are two books that I highly recommend: Coaching Conscious and The Language of Coaching by Nick Winkelman. People don't care what you know, but they know how much you care. So you do that by servant leadership every day. All of you guys earlier, you raised your hand when Byro asked you, do you have a coach that impacted you the most? All you guys raised your hand, right? You guys can see that person, right? You know that person's name. You're probably thinking of something that they did for you that you're like, man, that changed my life. Somebody told me one time is you love that person, you love that teacher, you love that coach because they love you first, right? So think about that as you're going into coaching, or you're coaching anybody, whether you're the manager at Chick-fil-A or anything else. It's about you loving on people first, right? Not them expecting, hey, you need to go do this and you need to go do that, and you're leading by pointing. You lead by literally getting out front. This is how it's done. Let me show you how. I'll love on you a little bit. Put my arm around you. Hey, you need something? You need food? All right, you need lunch? All right, that's how you build that rapport over a long period of time. I'll add on to that. Talking about leading by example every single day, okay? I love telling this story because it's a story that's really important to the Bananas, but a lot of people don't know it, and they don't even know Emily Cole. Does anybody know who Emily Cole is? Anybody know? Bryson, who's Emily Cole?
She's Jesse's wife, and she is a saint.
So Jesse Cole is our owner, the guy in the yellow tux. Everybody knows Jesse, right? He's in this yellow tux. Everybody sees him, right? The heart of the Bananas is Emily Cole, okay? She handles all the background things of taking care of people, right? She leads by example every day. I watched her as the owner in 2017, 18, 19, pick up trash, pick up crap off the bathroom floor, throw trash away all over the stadium, cook hamburgers. She was in there flipping burgers, right? The owner, right? Now you guys think of the Bananas, and we've got 2 million people on our wait list. We're going to all these major league stadiums. She's literally in the trenches, showing what it looks like every single day and loving on the people that work in our organization. But one day I walked out on the baseball field and there were some weeds that were out in the baseball field that the maintenance team missed. And I walked out of the dugout and I looked into left field, and Emily Cole was down on her hands and knees with a pair of scissors cutting the weeds in left field because it was the right thing to do. It wasn't her job, right? I mean, you guys hear that, it's not my job, I'm not going to do it. It wasn't her job to go cut the weeds in left field, all right? But she saw a problem. She said, hey, I have the ability to do this, and I'm going to go do this. So I took a picture of it, and I'll never forget that. And then one of the guys I used to coach with, he said, Gillum, it's really easy to show up every day to this job, because when you look at the two owners, they're not in some huge box, making all this money, and they're just pointing fingers and telling people to do stuff. They're literally in the trenches every single day making this thing go, and that's what's special about Manland is because it starts at the top. So lead by example. No one cares what you know, but they know how much you care. All right, love on those people because those people that you love the most love on you first.
Questions. We can talk all day. We don't need questions. I bring up questions. It's really, really important to figure out how to ask the right questions. And I'm not saying for right now, but figuring out, you know what, I need some info, or I'd like more, or whatever, and learning how to ask the right question to people that you're trying to get some information from. And so, just like riding a bike, first time you did it, you didn't crush it, you fell down, you practice and you exercise that muscle. You exercise hey, how do I ask questions? How do I communicate? How do I create these relationships? And so the only way to do it is to start, right? You can start right now. Who's got a question? Anybody? Because I'll continue to talk. Yeah, what you got?
So working with like I guess I shouldn't say like the older population, but like a lot of us in here are like working with like youth baseball, youth whatever. But like working with older guys, I know there's like a lot of individuality there with how you coach them, but are there any like hard and fast rules per se that you kind of use? Because like I work with like 30-year-old firefighters, you know what I mean? So I don't know, like what would you, I guess, suggest as like a general sort of course of action?
I would always, regardless of the age or age that you're working with, it goes back to those relationships, creating those relationships, figuring out a way to connect with that youth player, with that 30-year-old. I can tell you that the older people get, the more experiences that they have in life, and the more they get kind of ingrained and kind of solidified in their kind of like thought process or how they go about things. And so those older players, you're probably going to have to be more specific. You're probably going to have to do a lot more listening. Again, this comes down to asking the right questions. So I could go ask a pitcher, a professional level pitcher, how do you feel today? And you know what they're going to say to me? Good. Why do they say good? Because they want to pitch. If they say, man, kind of aching a little bit, there's a chance that I, as a coach, will say, you know what, maybe give you some rest. But for that professional pitcher, I want to truly know how they're doing body, mind, spirit. I want to know mentally, where are they? Physically, very, very important. That's an injury prevention thing. So trying to elicit those answers that you want from the older clientele is you got to get way more specific when it comes down with relationships. If they feel comfortable that they know that if they say, hey, you know what, my shoulder's kind of aching a little bit, that I'm not just going to be like, oh, dude, you're down for a week. If they know that I truly want to know because I have this process that we go through, and maybe I can help them with whatever it is. It might be good pain. Okay, cool, that's good pain. Oh man, that's not the pain where you want it. Compared to the younger ones. The younger ones are all about creating energy, creating this like enthusiasm, tricking them into learning whatever the fundamentals are. Okay, so the younger clientele and working with them, it's all about, it's emotional. It's exciting. It's less, mechanical and kind of nuts and bolts. Does that make sense? Yeah. Do you want to add on that?
Yeah. Strength and conditioning guy, you always do pre-assessments, right? You're trying to figure out mobility of that person, maybe a strength and conditioning test or a speed test. You might be doing the same thing within the academy of firefighters, right? And so observing and asking questions, what Byron was talking about, gives you the information that you need to be able to give that person the correct program for them to buy in, right, and then execute. Why? Because it aligns with some of their goals and what they're able to do. If you walk in right away and you're like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Let's say you put together a strength and conditioning program and you go, hey, we're going to back squat 3 by 8, and you didn't do any pre-assessment on anything of this person, and then they go in there and they rack the bar on their back and they're like, hey, by the way, I had back surgery and I've got these vertebrae fused together, and I'm like, yeah, it's probably not the best idea to put him under a bar with weight, right? So it's one, understanding who that person is, what their goals are, what's their telescope goal, their big vision goal, where they want to go. You have to understand those in order to create the program that aligns with them to get buy-in. Because if they go into it with no relationship and no buy-in, you're like, hey, do this. You're like, man, I can't get that person to do anything. You probably need to have a conversation with that person and be like, hey, man, like, tell me why you don't want to do that exercise or what's going on. It's like, well, 10 years ago I had a hip injury, and that's why I want to do it. So it's a lot of times, what I've learned in the coaching world, a lot of times when there's people that rebel and they're like, I'm not going to do that, there's this underlying experience that they've had in the past that's gotten them to act that way. And so as soon as I see that, I got to go, okay, let's have a conversation with this person, like, let's hear them out. Usually you know, it's like, oh, you know, I need to tweak that exercise. We can do this exercise over here, or I need to communicate better, right?